Brookdale was a city with a complex soul. Located in the heart of the American South, it was a place where traditions ran deep, for better or worse. Despite decades of civil rights movements and calls for equality, racism lingered beneath the surface like a silent predator. The police force, in particular, remained one of the last strongholds of old, entrenched ways. Whispers of injustice echoed in neighborhoods where black families lived in fear of the very people sworn to protect them. Within the Brookdale Police Department, promotions came fast and easy if your skin was the right color. White officers climbed the ranks at twice the speed, often with half the effort. Talented officers of color found themselves stalled at middle management, or worse, squeezed out entirely. Many fought hard to stay in the game, but the rules were always stacked against them. And then came Chief Olivia Morgan. She was everything they didn't expect and nothing they wanted. A black woman, 46 years old, 25 years of law enforcement experience under her belt, including time in some of the country's most challenging precincts. Olivia had grown up in the rough neighborhoods of Detroit and knew what injustice looked like long before she pinned on a badge. She carried that experience into her career, pushing herself through the ranks with a kind of grit and determination that few could rival. For Olivia, the appointment as Brookdale's first black police chief wasn't just a promotion, it was a mission. She knew the odds. She knew the hostility she was stepping into, but she had no intention of backing down. A quiet entrance. Her first day on the job wasn't marked by grand speeches or public fanfare. Olivia chose something quieter, something calculated. She left her formal uniform at home and walked into the department wearing dark jeans, fitted black blouse, and a simple blazer. No badge, no name tag, just a plain leather messenger bag slung over her shoulder. She wanted to see them, the real them, not the sanitized versions they trotted out during public events. She wanted to experience how they treated someone they didn't believe mattered. The Brookdale Police Department's lobby was everything she expected: sterile, cold, and indifferent. A group of officers, all white men, loitered by the front desk, laughing about something that had clearly amused them. The receptionist, a young man named Officer Brian Ellis, scrolled through his phone, barely glancing up as people walked in and out. Across the room, an older black man sat nervously on a plastic chair, his cap in his hands, his eyes darting between the clock and the officers who ignored him. He had been waiting a long time. No one had spoken to him. Olivia stood quietly by the door for a few moments, taking in the scene. The atmosphere was familiar. She had lived it herself more times than she could count. Then, with calm, measured steps, she approached the front desk. Brian finally looked up, his expression blank and uninterested. "Yeah, I need to speak to human resources," Olivia said, her voice steady. Brian gave her a quick once-over, eyes lingering on her dark skin and short, neatly styled hair. "For what?" he asked, the edge in his tone undeniable. "I'm here to complete some paperwork," Olivia replied smoothly. Brian didn't respond. He just shrugged and went back to his phone. Olivia stood there for several minutes, waiting. He made no move to help her. She took a slow breath and glanced at the clock. 15 minutes passed. The older black man shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Lieutenant Gregory Tate. The lobby door opened again, and a tall, broad-shouldered man entered. He was in full uniform, his badge gleaming, his hair cut in a military fade. Lieutenant Gregory Tate, 48 years old, 17 years on the force. Known for his old-school views, his connections with the department's senior brass, and his belief that the Brookdale PD was a man's job best left to the right kind of people. He looked at Olivia the way one might look at a bug crawling across the floor. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice a low growl. Olivia turned to face him directly. "I'm here to complete paperwork with Human Resources." Tate crossed his arms over his chest. "You sure you're in the right place?" She didn't blink. "This is Brookdale Police Department, isn't it?" He smirked. "Yeah, but we don't handle welfare cases here." The words hung in the air like a foul odor. A few of the officers at the desk chuckled, glancing at each other with knowing looks. Olivia kept her face neutral. "I'll wait for someone from HR," she said. You can wait outside, Tate replied. We don't need loiterers. Olivia took a deliberate step forward. I'm not loitering. I have business here. He narrowed his eyes. You're starting to piss me off. She met his gaze, unflinching. That's not my concern. The room grew tense. A few younger officers shifted uncomfortably. They weren't sure what was happening, but they knew Tate was escalating. You've got about 5 seconds to get out of my sight, Tate warned, his tone sharper now. I'll be right here, Olivia replied calmly. Tate's face darkened. Without warning, he stepped closer and grabbed her by the arm. I said leave. The punch hurt around Brookdale. Olivia didn't flinch. She'd expected something like this. She pulled her arm back, breaking his grip with a practiced twist. Tate's eyes widened, shocked that she dared to resist him. And then he lost it. With a grunt, he swung his fist and landed a heavy punch squarely on Olivia's cheek. The force sent her stumbling back against the desk, her hand catching the edge before she hit the floor. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then, laughter erupted from a few corners of the room. One of the officers whistled softly. Damn, Greg. Didn't think you had it in you. Olivia rose slowly. Her cheek throbbed, but she kept her expression composed. She adjusted her blazer and stood tall, silent, watching. And then the door to human resources opened. The reveal. David Kramer, HR director for the Brookdale Police Department, stepped out holding a thick folder. He froze when he saw Olivia. His eyes flicked from her bruised cheek to the officers gathered around. Oh my God, he whispered. Then, louder, do you know who that is? Confusion rippled through the room. That's Chief Olivia Morgan, Kramer said, his voice rising in panic. She's the new chief of police. The effect was immediate. Laughter died. Smirks disappeared. Tate's face drained of color as he took a staggering step back. You're lying, he muttered. No way. Kramer threw the folder on the desk and flipped it open to the official appointment papers, signed by the mayor and city council. She took command today. Olivia didn't say a word. She let it sink in. Officers who had been chuckling now stared at the floor. A few whispered apologies to no one in particular. Others simply stood in shocked silence, realizing they had laughed, mocked, and watched violence unfold against their superior officer. Tate's bravado crumbled. He lifted his hands defensively. I didn't know. If I had known, it wouldn't have mattered, Olivia said sharply. You assaulted someone in your own station. Whether I'm a civilian or your chief, the crime remains. The arrest. Lieutenant Gregory Tate, Olivia said, her voice carrying authority that silenced the entire room. You're under arrest for assault. Tate shook his head in disbelief. You can't do this. I just did, she replied. 2 officers moved forward, slowly and hesitantly. They cuffed Tate without ceremony. He didn't resist. He couldn't. His career, his life as he knew it, was over. As he was led away, the weight of what had happened settled over the entire department. The aftermath. By noon, an emergency internal affairs investigation was underway. Dozens of complaints against Tate and other senior officers were pulled from dusty files. Stories of misconduct, harassment, and racial bias that had long been buried came to light. By the end of the week, Tate had been terminated. Several of his allies within the department were suspended pending further investigation. Brookdale PD was in turmoil, but for the first time in years, it felt like something was changing. A new era. 2 days later, Olivia stood on the steps of City Hall, addressing reporters and residents. Cameras flashed. Microphones picked up her every word. I came to Brookdale to lead, to serve, and to reform, she said. This department belongs to the people it serves. Racism, discrimination, and abuse of power have no place here. The crowd erupted in applause. I will not tolerate injustice, Olivia continued, and I will not stand by while good officers are silenced by bad ones. The message. As the press conference ended, Olivia turned toward the cameras with one final message. To the people of Brookdale, this is your police department, and I work for you. Thank you for following this powerful story. If you found it meaningful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll continue sharing stories that matter, stories of justice, courage, and change. Don't miss tomorrow's story. It's one you won't forget.